Hi everybody, welcome to the fourth lecture in my Batch 3 Excel series. And I'm going to discuss something with you, continuing our research into some of the really more advanced functions that Excel can perform for you, in this case, sorting and data management. Okay, we've looked at numbers quite a bit because this is a numeric spreadsheet, but data management is one of the more subtle powers and very sophisticated powers that Excel indeed gives to you. So what I've done here is I've reopened our VLOOKUP file that we've used throughout the first 3 lectures in this series. This is where we left off. And take a look at this gentleman here. His name is George Boole, B-O-O-L-E. Even though he only lived into his 40s, tragically, he invented essentially his own branch of algebra. You may have dealt with it in high school. It's called Boolean logic or Boolean algebra. And he really took advantage of 3 words, and, or, and not. And he may not have known it, I don't think he would have known it, but this would figure very prominently into computer logic when it comes to data management. At the time he was using it for very sophisticated things called set theory and aspects of algebra that I'm not qualified to get into, but indeed you may remember it from high school. So when you are sorting, I've shown you already several ways that you can sort and manage your data, and I'm going to really get into a great one in the second lecture series under Batch 3. That's much more flexible, but for now I want to confine us to some of the work we've already done. So what I did is I repeated my earlier matrix of data here from, let's call it a sales journal. They're not numerically ordered. These are a bunch of invoices that we bill our customers. These are our customers. For now, they're sorted alphabetically. I just did that for my own convenience. I have a zip code here that is an alpha field. That's a text field. It's not numeric. I may use that later, which is why I mention it. And finally, we have a numeric field for the amount of the invoice for the goods or services that we sold our customers. Right. So what I'd like to do is quickly review our function that's known as the if function. I did introduce you to that earlier, a couple of badge videos ago. When you want to look at the many functions that Excel provides to you, come up here to the green bar. It's green on my program at least. You may have chosen a different color or format. And right now home is highlighted. I'm going to come over here to formulas. And I click on the Formulas tab, and in the ribbon, you'll remember that several icons appear, recently used, financial, logical, text. Okay, we're dealing with logical now, so we'll focus on the purple tab, which says logical. Okay, now if I click on that, our old friend, the formula manager, as we old-timers call it, or the formula builder, is going to appear way over on the upper right side of the matrix that you see here, friends. So I'm going to click on if. Okay, you'll remember, I hope you'll remember, that the if function requires one thing. You give a test. You test something. You test a text, a value, the contents of a cell. If your test is true, you're going to do one thing, value if true. If it's not true, if it's false, you'll do another thing. So if this is the case, do this. Otherwise, do this. Now, George Boole is going to make this a lot fancier in a moment. You already know how to do this, so this is really a quick review. Now, I'm going to ignore the formula builder, and instead I'm going to type this in freehand. So testing our if value, you'll remember you type an equal sign, if, and parens, and you put something in the parens. 3 things. A test, what to do if it's true, what to do if it's false. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's look at these last 3 arguments here. Not arguments, I'm so sorry, pieces of data. On lines 169 through 171. I'm going to say if my invoice, okay, so I'm going to come up and select an invoice value. Okay, if that number is greater than, pick a number, 5,000, greater than 5,000, comma. We separate our arguments within the parens by commas, as you'll recall. If it's greater than 5,000, I'm going to say good. I have to put it in parens, comma, to separate my next argument. Otherwise, say bad. Make sure you close your parens. Now, Excel is going to be very rigorous and unforgiving about that. Whenever you have an open parens, it's going to be looking for a closed parens as well. If not, if you forget one of them, if they don't pair up, and we are going to pair up several of them later in something we call nesting, then Excel is going to get mad at you and it's going to come back and say, error message, I can't do it. Sometimes Excel will even say, I think this is what you want to do. Do you want to do it? Okay, so it is going to be our friend to a certain extent. I'm going to hit the enter button. Okay, and I'm going to test 3 values. So right now I have focused on cell E169, so I want to replicate that twice so it covers lines 170 and 171. So the if function found a value higher than 5,000 in this cell, it found one higher in this cell, but it found one lower than 5,000 in 171. So respectively it said good, good, or bad, because we told it to. You'll remember, that's how the if function works, friends. All right, I'm going to erase all of that. So far, so good. Now, we're going to get into this character's argument. So remember, George Boole came up with the application of those 3 words when he was working on set theory. We, as business majors, are going to use it in business data management by applying them to the sales journal that we see right here. Now remember, there were only, I think I used 17 lines here, but that could be 1,700 lines. Remember that throughout our lecture series, please, because, again, managing data means controlling that data, and that data extent can be massive. And we want to make sure we get it right. Okay, if you think Excel is unforgiving, wait till you see what happens if you give bad data to the boss. So, now what we'll do is this. We're going to test our Boolean values. I'm going to type in AND. Now, AND means what? AND means 2 conditions must be true. This condition must be true, and this condition must be true. Okay? Otherwise, it doesn't work. So it will return an argument to you of true. Okay, so, and, let me see. I want to say Valley. Okay, so I want this cell to be equal to Valley. All right, so I'm going to say equals V-A-L-E-Y. Don't forget your quotes. That's the first condition. The second condition, or argument as Excel calls them, must be that we want an invoice value. Let's stick with what we did before, greater than 5,000. Greater than 5,000. Close your parens. Okay, so we say and condition 1, condition 2. Both conditions must be accurate to return a value of true. Otherwise, guess what? It's going to return a value of false. I hit the enter button. False, okay? And I'm going to replicate that to get cell 170 and 171 also. All right, so let's analyze what we just did. Looking at 169, the customer is Ridgeway, the amount of the invoice is $6,800. Both conditions must be satisfied to return a value of true, otherwise it will return false. I said C169 must be valid, and E169 has to be bigger than $5,000. Well, one condition is true, the value is $6,800, but this is not valid. Therefore, since it didn't satisfy both conditions, friends, it returned a value of false. Again, we're going to use this later. Let's look at the second one, line 170. Yes, the customer is Valley, and yes, the invoice is greater than 5,000, so therefore it returned a value of true. Now we look at the third invoice on line 171. It is Valley, but it needs both conditions satisfied, and the invoice is less than 5,000, therefore it returns a value of false. That's a quick summary on how the AND operator works. Bear with me. Okay, I'm going to erase that. Again, if you have any questions on this, I cover these quickly, friends, because of 2 things. Number 1, because you can always write to me and ask me for a follow-up, which I will gladly provide. And secondly, because I'm recording this and you can always rewind, rewatch, and refer to the worksheet that I will post. Now, I have already posted this worksheet for my first couple of video lectures. I'm going to repost it because obviously I'm appending stuff to it. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is say, all right, I know what the AND function does. Now what I'm going to do is see if I can embed that within another command, the IF command, because my whole point of this lecture is to show you another method of data management and data control. So I'm going to use my IF statement again. If you give it a condition, and if that condition is true, do this, otherwise do that. So you need three things. The test, the what to do if true, the what to do if false. All right. Again, refer back to that formula builder, the formula manager, that will appear on the top left of your screen, way up here, if you have any questions. Okay? I'm going to skip using that for now, just to give us a little practice in building the formulas by typing them as we go. And by the way, once I typed =, if parens, you see Excel, they're cheating. They're giving me a little cheat sheet underneath anyway. If test, then true, then false. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to say, let me see. Let's revisit our if statement for a moment. So I'm going to say if, let's go way up to the top. If the customer's name is Concord, C-O-N-C-O-R-D, then I want to say, now it'll just say true, but I'm going to override that and put my own argument in. I'm going to say, if Concord, then say, yeah, comma, separate my arguments, put them in quotes because this is text. Then if it's not Concord, I'm going to say no way. I'm going to close my parens, and I am going to replicate that all the way down. All right, you notice the only ones that say yeah are these 5 for Concord. I gave it an if, and it passed the test. All right, I love how this is working out. All right, that's a refresher of the if. And now, by the way, I want to back up 1 second. Now, I'm going to take one invoice here. Let's take invoice number 3027. Now, it's applying a spelling test to Concord. It's looking for Concord. Okay, so I'm going to take Concord, and I'm just going to make it, how about Concord? Okay? Now, watch what happens on line 176. Bam. All right, it does not pass the test because of my misspelling. Okay, so let me back out of that, just like that. All right, very good. What do we want to do next? Now, okay, now that we've refreshed ourselves, our memories on the if statement, and now that I've demonstrated for you how the and statement works, I'm going to use something called nesting. I want to take the and statement and embed it inside an if statement. You can do that. So let's try that. I'm going to say, I want my customer name to be Concord, and I want my value to be greater than $10,000 for the invoice. Okay, I want to identify those. Now here's how I build the context. I'm going to put it here in my yellow. All right, =. I'm going to do an if operation. I open my parens. All right, now my test is not going to involve one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to involve 2. Watch this. I want to make sure that the customer name is Concord, and I want to make sure that the invoice value is greater than $10,000. And then I'll tell it what to do in either case. Here's how you build it. I'm going to say and. I'm going to embed my and statement inside my if statement. That's called nesting, because you nest one inside the other like those little Russian dolls that you open one up and there's another replicant of it inside, and you open them and open them. That's what this is like. Okay, so I'm going to say and. I'm going to say, let's come up and take cell C155, and I want that to be equal to Concord. I only want my Concords. Okay? Now I need 2 conditions for my and, so I need a comma. The second condition is that E155, I want that to be greater, that's my greater than sign, Let's use 10,000 because Concord's got some pretty big transactions there. I'm trying to identify the ones that meet that criterion. I close my parens. Now that closed parens is for the and statement. I haven't closed my if statement yet. I'm not done. So what am I going to do? All right, that's my whole test. My and statement is my test. And you'll know that in my if statement, I need a test and then what to do if so, what to do if not so. So now I put in my second of three arguments. If that test passes, what do I want to do? I want to say, yeah. If it doesn't pass, I'll say, no way. Am I done? Does that look done to you? What have I forgotten, friends? I've forgotten my parens. I've got to close the parens. Every single open parenthesis, Excel will be looking for a closed parenthesis to go along with it. They come in pairs. What a deal. Okay, so I'm going to make a leap of faith now, and I hope it works. If not, I will analyze it and pause and correct it. But I'm going to hit the Enter button. Okay. And now I am going to replicate that all the way down. I use that yellow highlighting to remind myself how many cells I have. Okay, so all of my values for my test showed false. I typed in no way, except for two, that one and that one. Let's go see if it worked. Now remember, for it to say yeah, it has to satisfy two conditions. It has to be Concord, and it has to be greater than $10,000 for the amount of the sale. Did it work? I only have to look at my Concords, really. Okay, and only two of them satisfy the condition. That one and that one. That one and that one. They represent the third and the sixth values in my array. Okay? I'm delighted to say, ladies and gentlemen, that it worked. Very good. Please feel free to pause this, review it at your leisure. I'm going to erase it right now, however, and I will be posting this so you can review how I constructed the formulas. Okay. Ooh, you know what? Before I do that, okay, I want to look at the second type of Boolean argument. Okay, I just put back all my ands right there, okay? Now let's go back. Now, Boole created the AND statement, and we've just seen firsthand how handy that can be in data management. Certainly computerized data management, and certainly the use of Excel in a business setting to sort conditions. This is another aspect of what we call conditional logic in an earlier lecture, friends. Now, let's look at his second argument, OR. OR means it's the same as AND, except you don't have to satisfy both conditions. You may satisfy either condition. Right? So, instead of both being true, either one can be true. Let's see what that does to us. Now, what we said is both the customer name must be Concord and the invoice amount must be greater than $10,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the AND to an OR by editing this cell right here. So instead of AND, it will now say OR. I could build this from scratch by using freehand typing or using my formula builder or formula manager, whatever you want to call it. Instead, I'm going to be lazy. Since it's already there, I just edited and changed my AND command to an OR command. I hit enter, and I'm now going to replicate that all the way down. Remember, you've got to replicate it. Okay, so it accepts either condition. Either the customer name must be Concord, or the invoice amount has to be greater than 10,000. The only invoices greater than 10,000 are Concord, two of them, and one for Abbott. All right? So now you'll notice it accepts Abbott. Why? Because it doesn't say Concord. It doesn't have to. I used an OR instead of an AND. But it does say yeah because the invoice amount is greater than, what did I use? $10,000. You'll notice that all of the Concords say yeah as well, even though some of them were not greater than 10,000 because it's an OR condition. Because it did find Concord, it said, okay, that passes also. It could be this or it could be this. That's the difference between AND and OR. Now, just for grins, let's try changing our $10,000 to, how about 9,000? Now it should give me anything that says Concord or anything that's greater than $9,000 for the invoice amount. You'll notice the first one changed right away. Don't forget, you've got to replicate that because all the other formulas have not been updated yet. Now, at this point, if Excel finds that the customer name is Concord, or it finds that the invoice amount is greater than 9,000, it's going to say, yeah, otherwise it's going to say, no way. That's how this aspect of conditional logic works. I'm going to stop here, friends, and I'll resume the lecture and show you something else about printing after, and stand by. I'll be right back.